as the world watches the Greek financial crisis unfold and China's stocks falling and climbing again. Many in Africa are curious to know what all this means to their continent. To get some clarity, Africa 54 host Vincent Makori sat down with Bertrand Badre, Managing Director and World Bank Group Chief Financial Officer.
So that's something where you have all these pieces moving around, and that's where institutions like the World Bank are extremely important, because we can help countries connect the dots and see how you can better react, what type of political framework should you adapt, what type of assistance can we provide, etc. And what is interesting, in the midst of all these kind of moving parts, we have this big conference in Addis Ababa starting next week. So on the one hand, you have a world which looks more and more fragmented. On the other hand, you have people who say, okay, despite all this fragmentation, we have to come together to find the appropriate way to move forward together.
Actually, now that you've made reference to the conference in Addis Ababa, this is about raising funds for sustainable development, particularly in Africa. And some people are saying perhaps the best way for African countries would be to kind of look domestically, perhaps try to be less dependent on external financing. Is this something viable?
I think there is not the best way. There are a combination of very good ways. And that's what we've tried to put together with IMF and the other development bank, including the African Development Bank. For the first time in history, we published a short note together, but we call it billions to trillions. And what do we mean with that? It's exactly your questions. Billions, this is the order of magnitude of ODA, public money coming from the advanced economy to the emerging and developing economies. 135 billion last year. It's a lot. And it's not a lot. It's 0 point something % of global GDP, of the money created by the world every year. So it's very little. But it's still absolutely necessary. In many cases, there is no substitute for this public money. So you need to have the combination of the billions and the trillions of domestic money and the trillions of good combination of public and private efforts. So that's really what we mean by bringing the billions to the trillions.
In terms of fiscal discipline, we know that in the past, the World Bank, the IMF, they used to kind of not just persuade, but literally attach these conditionalities to African economies and other developing economies. Is there any stronger push right now to kind of require countries to kind of pursue a particular way of fiscal discipline in order for them not to fall into the situation where they're unable to not only achieve their objectives, but sometimes be unable to pay even whatever they owe to external creditors?
So there are two aspects to that question. The first aspect, of course, bearing in mind what we've been through over the last 40, 50 years and the debt crisis in many countries, and the fact that basically we have forgiven some of the debt, of the past few years. It does cost a lot of money to every parties. So we don't want to kind of restart this game of over-indebtedness. That's absolutely clear, and this is something which is valid all over the world. Our model is really country-based. So how do we engage with a given country? We start with what we call a single country diagnostic. So the World Bank Group, public and private arm together, tell the country, okay, this is what we think your biggest challenges are. This is what we think you should be willing to do. And then based on this diagnostic, we have to sign a country partnership framework which says, okay, over the next 3 years, we understand that these are your priorities. Among your priorities, this is where we can help.
You have this conference in Addis Ababa. Going to produce some recommendations to be submitted to the UN by September. How challenging is it when you have to deal with the different individual countries with different economic policies and levels of development?
So we have to manage expectations. And you also have to consider that still today, many people consider Africa as one country. Whereas, as you rightly say, this is 54 countries. And the problem in one country do not necessarily reflect in another country, etc. So you have to help people navigate the complexity of the continent, its opportunity, its potential, but also some difficulties. And we have to make Africa a viable, attractive opportunity for investors. We have to help African countries mobilize domestic resources. So that's a combination of domestic, strong domestic underlying foundation with capacity to attract outside money. That will make a difference.